See, the whole idea, where is this world going? Because everything is better, brighter, faster, cheaper. So we are saying one fundamental thing: ecology and economy are the same coin. Both are two sides, so it is one coin. If you disrupt ecology, you disrupt economy. If you disrupt economy, you disrupt ecology. So we've coined a terminology and we've written a few books called Naturenomics, which is nothing but the interdependence between nature and economy, for which there's an equation. But all of this, including COP, is not possible to happen unless you value nature.
Quite true.
So what is nature's valuation?
When you think of Unilever as a company, I'm saying we are a company which is delivers household products across the world. We have 2.5 billion people who use our products across the world every day. And as a company, we are hugely dependent, probably one of the largest users of agricultural ingredients like soft oils and vegetables, etc. So if that's the business that you are in, it's easy to see why a reliable, resilient source of supply is so crucial for our future. But it is also easy to see that why a prosperous society is so important for our business. One addresses the source of supply and the other is about having a source of demand where people are growing, they're affluent, they want to progress, and therefore meaningful users of our products. When you take these two together, it's easy again for us to see that unless we integrate sustainability at the heart of what we do, we will not have a future.
Wonderful.
That's why we called out a strategy which said that we have to find a model of growth which will de-link growth with the adverse effects on the environment and relink it with positive social good. That's the mission that we had for ourselves. And we wanted to demonstrate that such a company which we want to be famous for being the world leaders in sustainability, is not just a sustainable company, that this model can deliver exceptional financial outcomes as well. It's only when you do both will it inspire other businesses and to follow this path and create a new model in the business world. So that's what we were out to do.
That is absolutely fantastic because it resonates very well with meaning what the world needs. And irrespective of what other companies are doing, I think your leadership role to make other companies follow you will be critical. But equally, without meaning to be disrespectful for the work and going ahead, what would you do for things like plastic soup and all the plastic that has accumulated in the oceans over the years? Not all responsible for you, but all of us as users of plastic. We have contributed hugely on that. Is there any kind of mitigation that we should be responsible for, and should we be participating in that too?
Oh, absolutely. I think all of us have to take responsibility for our actions. As a company, we made some bold commitments when it comes to things like plastic. We want all our ingredients to have recyclable plastics. We want to reduce the amount of virgin plastic that we use. More importantly, we want to be in a position where we are collecting more, at least as much plastic as we are putting out into the environment.
Wonderful.
We believe plastic per se is not bad, as long as it stays in the economy and doesn't get into the oceans. Plastic is a wonderful material, provided it is managed properly. So in order to do all of this, and by the way, all the goals that I talked about are time bound in terms of the commitments that we've called out. And to do this, we have a three-pronged strategy, which is less plastic, better plastic, and no plastic. So there are many initiatives that we've got to try and find ways by which we will use less plastic or better plastic, as in recyclable plastic, or even ideas that will eliminate the need for plastic. And that's the work that we are on.
So your support and guidance would be very helpful because we're working together. It's the same thing. And rightly, as you said, it's a real high note for me to hear it, that actually, if you don't have ecology in the center of your business, there's no point in saying that two sides of the same coin. Ecology is the center, everything else around it is the right and optimistic note. And well done, Unilever, for doing what you've done and so well articulating this, Nitin. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And all the very best to you, Ranjit.
Thank you, Nitin. By then, we'll catch
Bye-bye.
up soon. Bye.
What is your view that will nature ever be valued, and could India take a lead on it?
Thank you. I do consider that nature and economics are inseparable. The development path that we are all pursuing, not just in our country or in our neighborhood, but globally, is bound to impact all our lives, not necessarily through economic channels alone, but through nature also. And especially, we people of India, people of Asia, are living in a region which is the most happening region in the 21st century. The global power axis, which was located somewhere in between Western Europe and America in the last century in the Pacific Atlantic region, has today shifted to our neighborhood, to the Indian Ocean Indo-Pacific region. It is here that the fastest growing economies exist. It is here that the world's three largest economies exist: China, Japan, and India. It is here that the purchasing power exists. That also means it is here that the next 100 years will see major developmental activity taking place. If we do not marry that development activity with proper measures to safeguard, preserve our nature, first to be doomed will be we in this region. I'm certainly very conscious of the challenge, but as you also pointed out, we need to balance it out between how we give better living standards to our people, at the same time how we are able to preserve the ecological balance also. Especially today we are faced with challenges of rising sea levels. Many countries in our region, if you take Indian Ocean region, whether it is Maldives or it is Seychelles or it is even bigger countries like Indonesia, are hugely concerned about rising sea levels. Today, Indonesia is contemplating of building a new capital, shifting from Jakarta, taking capital to hinterland, meaning spending billions and billions of dollars on rebuilding a capital. So that is the kind of challenge that we are also going to face in the next decades. So we must come together. I strongly feel that just as in the last century, to take development in a properly balanced manner forward, the nations in European continent came together to form what we today call as European Parliament and European Union. Time has come for us to now form an Indian Ocean, if possible, an Indian Ocean Parliament, otherwise at least an Indian Ocean Union, Indian Ocean Conference, to come together and discuss about future of our ecology, marine ecology, sea levels, our glaciers, our continents, our islands especially. The most dangerous challenge is for our island nations. So to think about them, to strategize, to network, to work together, we all have to come together. Indian Ocean has to become very active now.
Absolutely. Very, very well said, Dr. Madhav. I also think that what you said is a very big idea. I think this idea of having a, a parliament in this sub-region and in the Indian Ocean sub-region and also the Bay of Bengal area is absolutely critical. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Really pleasure to meet you, and we will be in touch. Thank you.
Eastern Himalayan Naturenomic Forum, this is the 9th one, and I think you've been aware and involved in it from the very beginning. So thank you for the support. We believe straight away that naturenomics, which means interdependence between nature and economics, is not debatable anymore. If you actually harm ecology, then you also harm economics. So over to you. It's absolutely important to value nature. Without it, no COP26 can actually work going forward, because it's not just about carbon capture, it's about rural livelihoods and employment.
So thanks for that, Ranjit. And, honestly, I've been in this area sometimes very deeply engaged, sometimes standing at the sidelines, watching and seeing through the foundations that I work with, the impact to livelihoods, the impact to health, the impact to water security, the impact to even the ability to reach out to communities and societies in a big way. And one thing I'm convinced at the end of it all, you know, everyone says GDP and green domestic product and gross domestic product and see it as two sides of the same coin. I don't even think that it's two sides of the same coin. It's the same coin, you know, honestly, because the moment you start to bucket them, you start to kind of, you know, create the typical, you know, us and them kind of scenario. I don't think there is a cause for bucketing. I don't think there are two sides of anything. They are part of the integral survival of our planet Earth. So simply put, I think we have, especially in India, and of course, I'm sure that's the case for the rest of the world, some countries have already understood this linkage so powerfully that they make sure that their actions are governed by those linkages in many ways and that they are sensitive to those linkages. But in our country, I think the awareness is just starting, and I am hopeful that we will see the light of day very quickly. We will see the sensitivities very quickly. We'll see the linkages very, very quickly, and they will underpin all policy action, all developmental actions, all commercial actions that we take collectively as a country and as a society.
So you've said it very well, but I have a question. Why isn't the Prime Minister, and we've actually made this proposal 2 years ago, standing up and actually saying, this is the ecological budget of our country. This is the ecological assets we had last year. This is how much it has increased this year in these 5 parameters, which is water, renewable energy, tree cover, food, employment in rural areas, and actually industries that are made out of this.
Our dependence on alternates is still very low compared to where we should actually be. You know, whether it is solar, whether it is wind, whether it is tide, with the kind of coastlines we have, with the kind of sunshine we have in our country, with the kind of wind power we have in some parts of our country, I think we are so well placed for the development of alternate energy and making that a bulk of our energy and not have things like thermal powered, you know, energy. I think those days are gone. And I think the Prime Minister is also recognizing that a little bit now. There are certain states which are recognizing that ahead of the center and possibly taking more aggressive action. But I think the center is also recognizing that, because I know that in some of our discussions on water security, the departments are much more amenable today because they realize the connections. They are also now seeing the connections to deforestation, for example, in Uttarakhand. The number of landslides and the destruction in the hills that is happening is alarming. See that in Kerala, you know, we have so much by way of floods and so much by way of, you know, issues with respect to disruption of livelihood, all because we have been insensitive in the way we've managed our natural assets. And I think it is changing. And I think the pace will pick up. But yes, you're right. I wish we had this thing of proudly saying, this is our natural asset, this is how we value it, and this is how it adds or takes away from the overall assessment of our gross domestic product or gross national product or any other economic parameter that we wish to measure.
We have done 5 million, our target is 100 million, and we look forward to showing you this and taking your advice on how to make it better. Thank you so much and look forward to
Yeah.
welcoming you there. Take care, my dear. Bye.
Bye-bye.
So it's a real privilege to be able to say a few words as part of the Eastern Himalayan Naturenomics Conference in 2021, particularly on the very important topic of valuing the independence between ecology and the economy. As we saw at COP26, everyone recognizes, or most people do anyway, the importance of combating climate change and how important that is for the environment, for the preservation of the world, and for increasing biodiversity. While we agree on many of those things, how we solve that problem is a real challenge. There are lots of ideas, inventions, and innovations that people put forward, and in fact, lots of progress being made in many of those areas as well. But one of the big challenges, and we saw this at COP26, is understandably, perhaps the developing world that consumes much less carbon per capita than in the case of the developed world. The developing world, of course, feels that the developed world should make much more progress on reducing its footprint. The developing world should be able to grow and develop its economy and the wealth of its citizens to the same standards of living and same consumption patterns of the developed world. How you solve that problem is a real issue. It's a real challenge. And that's why the focus of this year's Naturenomics Conference, Valuing Interdependence Between Ecology and Economy, is so important. Because if we don't solve the challenge of how we value our environment and how we think about that in economic terms, we will never solve the problem of climate change. We will never solve the problem of protecting the world. So it's a very important subject, this notion of how we value ecology, how we value the planet and the value we place on it. So that when we start doing things that damage the environment, we can put a price on that. We fully price in the damage we are causing and the issues we are causing as part of our economic calculations. The other very important area that needs to be investigated as part of that, of course, is thinking about how people can develop their own economic livelihoods in a sustainable way that looks after the environment. And therefore, I think this topic is the one topic that the world really needs to address if it's going to make progress on protecting the environment and protecting climate and climate change. If we don't figure out how the economy takes into account the cost of the damage we are doing to it, we will never make progress. And we need to make sure that people can develop their economic livelihoods as well in the Eastern Himalayas, can develop their own wealth and the well-being of society in a sustainable way. And that's why some of the inventions and innovations that will come out of the Eastern Himalayas hopefully can be showcases for the rest of the world in terms of how to develop in an economically sustainable way, but an ecologically sustainable way as well. Thank you very much.